On the eve of the year 2076, the line between reality and fantasy shattered as a game-like scenario took over the world. Suddenly, dangerous dungeons filled with monsters appeared everywhere, and humanity was thrown into chaos. Powerful creatures wiped out entire populations, pushing mankind to the brink of extinction. But then, as if responding to the cries of humanity, divine talents were granted to a chosen few, giving rise to hunters, people who could wield incredible abilities. These hunters fought back, turning the tide against the monsters, and eventually saved the world. But as the dust settled, a new era began, an era where strength was everything and survival of the fittest became the law of the land. Now, hunters had to constantly evolve, fighting their way through dungeons, battling bosses, collecting treasures, and leveling up. This relentless quest for power marked the beginning of what became known as the Global Hunter Era. One of the most iconic places in this new world was the Hunter Square. This massive structure was known for its towering height and the aura of power that surrounded it. But before anyone could start their journey as a hunter, they had to face the 1,000 steps, a symbolic trial. If you made it to the top, you'd awaken your hunter class and gain the chance to unlock your full potential. However, not everyone hit the jackpot with their class. And that's where we meet Su Yang. After completing the trial, Su Yang descended the grand staircase of Hunter Square, but instead of excitement, he was feeling, well, disappointed. He'd hoped for a rare, powerful class, but what did he get? A warrior, the most basic class you could imagine. His stats? Nothing special. Strength at 12, speed and spirit at 10. Basically, not a great start. Warriors like him often found themselves in tough spots during close combat, facing more risks than those with specialized abilities. It felt like no matter how hard they trained, they were always in someone else's shadow. And just when Su Yang was coming to terms with his reality, along comes Wang Fei, a loudmouth looking to stir the pot. Wang Fei, who'd just awakened as an ice mage, couldn't resist throwing some shade at Su Yang, calling him a nobody orphan who didn't deserve anything more than grunt work. But Su Yang wasn't having it. He clapped his hands, like he was swatting an invisible fly, and hit Wang Fei with a quick, sarcastic clapback. He congratulated him on becoming an ice mage, but with a sly remark about how mages are basically glass cannons, strong in magic but fragile as hell in a real fight. Su Yang even told Wang Fei to run those hands if he really wanted the smoke. But as expected, Wang Fei started spewing weak threats, hiding behind his squad instead of stepping up. Just as the tension was building and it seemed like a brawl was about to break out, the vibe changed fast. One of Wang Fei's group members noticed something that made everyone freeze. The Spirit Hunt Guild's raiding team had arrived. This wasn't just any guild. This was a top-tier powerhouse known all across East Spirit City for its legendary achievements. And leading the group was none other than Zhao Ming, the vice president of the guild. Zhao Ming was a big deal. A guy you usually only saw on posters or in promotional videos, but here he was standing in the flesh, commanding the space around him with his presence. Alright, so Wang Fei, still riding the high of his Ice Mage class, decides to shoot his shot with the Spirit Hunt Guild. You can almost see the ambition in his eyes as he steps forward, eager to prove himself. He starts buttering up the raiding team, throwing compliments at the guild, and trying to showcase his rare Ice Mage abilities. The guy's got some confidence, hoping this might just land him a spot in one of the most prestigious guilds out there. At first, his request is straight up denied by one of the guild members. They stop him in his tracks, telling him to apply through the official recruitment process like everyone else. No shortcuts here. But then, in a twist, Zhao Ming, the vice president of the guild, notices Wang Fei's hustle and the potential value his control skill could bring to their team. So, out of respect for the effort, Zhao Ming hands Wang Fei a recruitment card. Big move. This not only highlights Wang Fei's potential, but also shows that the Spirit Hunt Guild is always scouting for new talent, even if they're selective. Now, seeing this go down, everyone else around them jumps in, trying to grab the raiding team's attention. People start shouting out their professions and abilities, hoping to score a spot in the guild too. But the Spirit Hunt team isn't having it. They make it clear that they're not here for a recruitment drive. Instead, they tell everyone to stick to the official process and stop bothering them with random applications. They drop this message with the kind of no-nonsense professionalism that shuts down any further debate. But then Su Yang, feeling a bit bold, asks if they're interested in warriors like him. The response? Nothing but disdain. The team acts like he just asked the dumbest question in the world, and you can almost feel the awkward silence as they brush him off without a second thought. This was just another reminder of how low warriors rank in the eyes of these elite guilds, especially compared to rarer classes. For Su Yang, this moment felt like another blow, highlighting just how difficult his path was going to be. In a world where your future was determined by the strength and rarity of your profession, being a basic warrior was like having a permanent handicap. Even the lower-tier guilds weren't interested in his class. But then, Su Yang overhears something that catches his attention. The Spirit Hunt Guild was gearing up to raid the Black Dragon's lair today. They were using the teleportation gate inside Hunter Square to access the dungeon. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Black Dragon's lair is no joke. It's the largest S-tier dungeon in City CA, packed with monsters, elite creatures, and at the very end of it all, the most terrifying boss, Black Flame Wings Athos, a level 99 monster that's taken down even the strongest guilds before. Despite how deadly this dungeon is, word has it that the Spirit Hunt Guild has hunters at 4th Transcendence or higher, meaning they've got the firepower to handle it. Plus, they've got a reputation for never failing a raid, so maybe they can actually pull it off. But for Su Yang, hearing all this just made him feel worse. Here he was, watching others about to take on this epic quest, while he was stuck in a basic warrior class, doomed to a life of mediocrity. The thought of being trampled underfoot by stronger hunters, while he struggled to survive, was starting to weigh on him. Just as he was sinking into despair, something unexpected happened. Out of nowhere, a system notification popped up, catching him completely off guard. The message? Perfect soul host detected. Part-time system will soon be bound to you. Wait, what? Su Yang couldn't believe it. This wasn't just some random notification, it was a game changer. And as if that wasn't enough, when he opened his eyes again, he found himself transformed. He wasn't Su Yang anymore. He had become the very thing everyone feared, the level 99 Black Dragon, Athos, the Black Flame Wing itself. So, now that Su Yang is transformed into Athos, the Black Flame Dragon, he's suddenly aware of the sheer power he's gained. His health pool is insane, 5 million HP. And his stats? Absolutely off the charts. We're talking incredible strength, speed, and spirit values that make him almost unstoppable. Oh, and did I mention his 80% immunity to both physical and magical attacks? Yeah, that's the dragon bloodline at work, giving him an insane advantage. And the skills this guy has? They're straight out of a legend. First, there's his Black Flames, a destructive power he can unleash without any cost, dealing massive magical damage to anyone who dares to face him. Then, he's got Dragon Suppression, which lowers the stats of any creature below his level by 20%. So, basically, any lower-level monsters don't stand a chance against him. But wait, it gets even better. Su Yang's got an entire arsenal of abilities that make him practically untouchable. Dragon Blast hits with 300% of his strength, which at this point is already crazy high. Then there's Dragon's Roar, a skill that stuns everything within a 300-meter radius for 5 seconds if their spirit stat is lower than his. And finally, his Dragon's Eye gives him the ability to see everything in his territory, even without a direct line of sight. Basically, Su Yang has become an unstoppable force, and the realization of his power leaves him in total shock. His new stats? 3,000 strength alone, plus all his resistances and unique skills. This power rush hits him so hard that he lets out a mighty roar, a primal scream that shakes the entire area. Even though Su Yang knows this transformation is only temporary, the feeling of controlling a level 99 dragon like Athos is exhilarating. Then, something clicks in his mind. If he can use this power to defeat other players or monsters, the experience he gains could be transferred back to his original form. This realization fills him with excitement. Even though his basic warrior class is considered weak, this opportunity could be the key to leveling up fast and completely changing his fate in a world that only respects power. But as Su Yang is processing all of this, he notices something odd. The monsters in front of him are clearly shaken. Turns out, his dragon roar had activated without him even realizing it, and these creatures were suffering from the aftereffects. Among them, one hooded figure stands out, trembling and begging for mercy, calling Su Yang their king. That's when it hits him. These monsters see him as their leader because he's embodying the Black Dragon. So, Su Yang decides to play the part. He looks down on them with all the arrogance of a superior being, commanding them to rise. Immediately, the hooded figure praises his immense power and even hints that once this dragon reaches maturity, it could easily crush the human world. This is a big moment for Su Yang. as he realizes the black dragon he's controlling is still just in its juvenile stage. That's wild because normally bosses in dungeons have fixed levels. But this dragon? It seems like it has the potential to grow even stronger. This revelation piques Su Yang's interest. He's definitely going to keep an eye on that. But then, Su Yang's attention is pulled in another direction. A beautiful elf is locked in a cage nearby. She's got elegant silver hair and striking crimson eyes, but right now, she's struggling under the pressure of Su Yang's dragon aura. When she notices him staring at her, she demands to be released, threatening him with retribution from the elven race. Su Yang? He's not intimidated at all. In fact, he's more fascinated. Since the merging of the game world with reality, mythical races like elves have become a thing, but they're super rare, especially ones like this who usually stay secluded in dungeon instances. This was his first time encountering one up close, and he's captivated by the chance to interact with her. But before he can engage further, the moment is interrupted by a spatial disturbance, a ripple in the air signaling that a player is about to enter the scene. The elf, sensing this, immediately assumes that her savior is arriving, and she starts taunting the dragon, believing her freedom is near. But to her surprise, the dragon, who she thought would ignore her, turns its attention back towards her. This puzzles her because typically, dragons don't even acknowledge such jibes. Su Yang, now in his powerful dragon form, had more pressing concerns than getting into a back and forth with the elf. He knew the Spirit Hunt Guild was on its way, and while they had a reputation for being unbeatable, Su Yang wasn't so sure they'd have what it takes to overcome him, not in his current formidable state. Still, he reminded himself to never underestimate an opponent. Overconfidence can lead to defeat, and Su Yang knew the Spirit Hunt Guild wouldn't be coming without a solid plan. To get a better sense of their strategy, Su Yang activated his Dragon's Eye ability, allowing him to scout the guild's movements from a distance. He quickly spotted their main assault team, led by Lei Shan, a level 99 Thunderstorm Master. Alongside him were the guild's elite members: Zhao Ming, a level 95 Storm Archer, Qin Yuan, a level 96 Healing Paladin, and Li Dan, the level 98 Holy Shield Master. All of them were marching toward his lair with one goal in mind: defeat the Black Dragon, Athos, and elevate their guild status to the 5th stage of transformation. Su Yang couldn't help but respect their boldness, but he was curious how long that confidence would last. Soon enough, the guild's advance was challenged by a swarm of magic wyverns, lesser creatures, but enough to slow down most challengers. Not the Spirit Hunt Guild, though. Lei Shan didn't even flinch. Calmly, he ordered his tanks to lead the charge while the rest of the guild used fire-based attacks to maximize their damage output. In perfect coordination, they wiped out the wyverns effortlessly, barely breaking stride. Watching from his lair, Su Yang was impressed by their skill and teamwork. The guild lived up to its reputation as a formidable force, but he knew these lesser minions weren't enough to slow them down, so it was time to raise the stakes. Su Yang summoned a dragon warrior, a massive, towering beast that sent a wave of awe and apprehension through the guild. Even Lei Shan was caught off guard by the sudden appearance of this behemoth. But the Spirit Hunt Guild wasn't going down that easily. Lei Shan quickly organized his team, and the dragon warrior, with its strength on par with the guild's elite, posed a real threat. The beast's ability to teleport short distances caught the guild off guard, almost overwhelming their DPS units. But just in time, Lei Shan activated his Divine Light Shield, a barrier that protected his team from the dragon warrior's devastating attacks. Amid the chaos, Zhao Ming took control, ordering the ranged units to retreat while the melee fighters engaged. With strategic precision, Zhao unleashed his Storm Arrow, a powerful skill that helped take down the dragon warrior and demonstrated the guild's resilience and flexibility when faced with unexpected challenges. Despite their success, Su Yang remained calm. This only proved that an elite monster like the dragon warrior could challenge the guild, but not stop them. Meanwhile, the elf, still in her cage, mocked Su Yang again for relying on minions that were easily dispatched. Little did she know, Su Yang had more up his sleeve. With a smirk, he summoned 6 more elite dragons, sending them into the fray. This sudden appearance of multiple elite dragons threw the Spirit Hunt Guild into chaos. Even their elite members were momentarily unsure of what to do. This wasn't part of any record or strategy. No one expected the Black Dragon to send units after them before they'd even reached him. It was a strange occurrence, one that had everyone on edge. But not Lei Shan. He stayed calm, confident that these were still just elite monsters, and dealing with elites was his specialty. With Lei Shan's leadership, the guild quickly reformed their ranks. He ordered his tanks to prioritize healing and maintain aggro, while the rest focused on taking down the elite dragons. Combining their sheer raw power with expert coordination, the guild once again managed to overpower the new threats. Watching from afar, Su Yang was surprised. He had expected the elite dragons to catch them off guard and push them back, but the guild handled the situation far better than he thought. They were more tenacious than he had given them credit for. But there was something else that puzzled him. Why were they so eager to challenge him? Sure, they were strong, but not strong enough to defeat him in his current form. Even with their elite members, they were barely handling the monsters he sent their way. Unless they had some hidden trump card, something they hadn't revealed yet. As Su Yang watched the Spirit Hunt Guild, he was deep in thought, only to suddenly notice something unexpected. The guild had changed direction. They were just steps away from confronting him, but now they were heading somewhere else. This definitely wasn't part of the usual raid strategy, and it set off alarms in Su Yang's mind. Curious about what they were up to, he activated his dragon vision to get a better look at their destination. That's when he spotted it. The Dragon Slayer's tomb. Inside, there was something glowing, an item that immediately caught Su Yang's attention. It was the Dragon Slayer's heart, a quest item capable of negating dragon talents. The moment he realized what this meant, a surge of rage overwhelmed him. If the guild got their hands on that heart, they'd be able to ignore his dragon talents, rendering his powers useless. His subordinates, startled by his sudden reaction, asked if he was all right, but Su Yang wasn't concerned about them right now. His mind was racing. He had seen this kind of thing happen in games before. A near-invincible boss would have its defenses weakened by a key item or mechanic, allowing the players to defeat it. If the Dragon Slayer's heart could truly bypass his talents, then there was a real chance he could be defeated. But now that he knew their plan, there was no way he was going to stand by and let them acquire it. With a powerful flap of his wings, Su Yang left his lair at an insane speed. The force was so intense that it shattered the sound barrier, creating a shockwave that shook the ground. His sudden departure caused an uproar among the monsters under his command. They were cheering, thrilled by the sight of their king finally taking action. Even the elf was stunned. This was completely out of character for a dragon. Normally, they would wait in their lair for adventurers to come to them. But the way Su Yang reacted was as if he were in a frenzy, and that was far more concerning. Meanwhile, the Spirit Hunt Guild continued their march through the dungeon, unaware of the fury heading their way. Lei Shan was frustrated. Things weren't going according to the guide they had received. Zhao Ming suggested that maybe the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion had deceived them with a faulty strategy. But despite all the uncertainty, Zhao Ming still had faith in the pavilion's reputation. He'd even traded his universe ring for that guide, so he wasn't about to question its authenticity. However, Qin Yuan raised a valid concern. If they ran into another unexpected situation, they might end up alerting the Black Dragon. Lei Shan dismissed this, confident that the dragon wouldn't leave its lair unless provoked. After all, according to their guide, the Black Dragon was nothing more than a lazy, overpowered lizard. As long as they didn't attack first, they had nothing to worry about. The dragon was just a stepping stone for the guild, and with all the damage it had caused, Lei Shan was determined to make the Black Dragon pay. But Qin Yuan had other motivations. He was more focused on completing the Elf Maiden's Easter egg. If they succeeded, they'd not only gain a pass to the Elven Kingdom, but the Elf Maiden herself would obey their commands. Lei Shan, understanding his team's ambitions, promised that once the dragon was defeated, they could deal with the elf however they wanted. However, their planning was cut short when one of the guild members, Chen Yuan, spotted a large silhouette in the sky. At first, they thought it was just a flying dragon, a minor threat, but something didn't add up. These types of creatures were labeled as guard monsters and shouldn't be appearing here. As the silhouette got closer, their mistake became clear. It wasn't just a guard monster. It was the Black Dragon, Athos himself. Shock spread through the guild. They were supposed to face the Black Dragon later in their quest, but now he was right in front of them. And without the Dragon Slayer's heart, the item they believed was essential for their victory, they were in deep trouble. Panic started to spread, and for a brief moment, the guild even contemplated retreating. Su Yang, watching their fear, couldn't help but smirk. The supposedly invincible Spirit Hunt Guild, reduced to cowards when stripped of their tricks. This played right into his hands. He saw this as the perfect opportunity to eliminate them and level up in one go. But just as he prepared to attack, Lei Shan's resolve hardened. He wasn't about to back down. As Su Yang readied his devastating attack, Lei Shan acted fast, using his lightning ability to interrupt the dragon's assault. While it wasn't the most powerful strike, it was enough to throw off Su Yang's attack, buying the guild precious time. Lei Shan wasn't about to back down. He unleashed a powerful aura of electricity, signaling to his guild that they were going to confront this black dragon head-on. There was no turning back now. He firmly instructed everyone. Retreat wasn't an option. Lei Shan believed in their strength and reminded them that while the dragon was powerful, so were they. And to motivate them even further, he promised generous rewards, money, equipment, even women, whatever they wanted once they took down the dragon. With that promise, the guild members' spirits were lifted. Even though the dragon looked as menacing as ever, they now believed they could do the impossible. Meanwhile, Su Yang couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. He was eager to see what this renowned guild had in store for him. As the confrontation escalated, Lei Shan swiftly gave orders to Li Dan to boost both their defenses and offensive capabilities. Li Dan activated their strongest defense barrier, while the healers were called to support with mana regeneration, ensuring the team could hold their ground. At the same time, the support classes worked to apply single-target buffs on Lei Shan and Zhao Ming, maximizing their attack potential. According to their strategy, they just needed a small window of opportunity to grab the Dragon Slayer's heart from the tomb. If they could create even the tiniest opening, there was still hope for them to defeat the dragon. But just as they were getting ready to execute their plan, Su Yang made his move. With a single powerful crash of his tail, he smashed down on the guild, causing chaos and destruction. He wasn't going to give them any time to breathe. But to his surprise, as the dust and debris settled, a flash of light and magic attacks came flying at him. The guild was still alive. It turned out that Li Dan had managed to activate a triple holy light barrier at the last second, protecting the guild from what could have been a deadly blow. It was unexpected. Bosses typically didn't attack first like this, so the guild had been caught off guard. But knowing that bosses could only use one skill at a time, Lei Shan and his team knew this was their chance to strike back. Qian Yuan quickly invoked a divine blessing, enhancing the power of their holy light skills. The other guild members followed suit, applying buffs to Lei Shan and Zhao Ming, boosting their power to the max. Now fully enhanced, they prepared to unleash their full might against the Black Dragon. Su Yang, watching them regroup so quickly, was impressed. The guild had been caught by surprise, but within moments, they were back on their feet and ready to counterattack. It was too late for Su Yang to dodge, so he braced himself, preparing for their assault. Lei Shan and Zhao Ming unleashed their most devastating attacks, combining all their strongest skills into one concentrated strike aimed directly at Athos. The impact of the attack was so intense that it could be felt far beyond the battlefield. Lei Shan, confident that they had done serious damage, commanded his guild to prepare for another wave. But as the smoke cleared, his confidence shattered. To his shock, the dragon stood there, barely scratched. The guild's most potent attacks had only managed to deal 10,000 damage. That wasn't even 1% of Athos' health. The dragon's damage reduction rate was far higher than they had anticipated. Seeing this, some guild members began to question whether they should retreat. But Lei Shan urged them to stay strong. According to the guide, the dragon wouldn't unleash its ultimate skills until its health dropped below 75%, so they still had a chance to distract it long enough to get the artifact. They continued to fight, hoping for that small chance. But Su Yang was growing impatient. Their tenacity was starting to feel like a swarm of mosquitoes, annoying but ultimately ineffective. Their attacks couldn't touch him, yet they still clung to hope. But Su Yang was done entertaining them. It was time to end this. With a deafening dragon roar, Su Yang unleashed a blast so powerful that the very ground beneath him crumbled. The guild members were overwhelmed by the roar, knocked flat by its devastating power. As the dust settled, only Athos remained, standing tall and proud. The Spirit Hunt Guild, even with all its elite power, had fallen before him. It was clear now, even an A-level guild was no match for him. In the aftermath of Athos's devastating dragon roar, Lei Shan struggled to stay conscious. He couldn't believe it. This was not how things were supposed to go. The guide had let them down again, filling them with false hope and strategies that didn't account for the sheer power of this dragon. Despite everything, Lei Shan's spirit remained unbroken. He urged his guild members to regroup and launch another attack, clinging to the belief that Athos would be vulnerable after unleashing such a powerful skill. But as he surveyed the battlefield, Lei Shan's heart sank. His guild members, the best fighters he had, were already incapacitated, scattered across the ground. Even the strongest among them had been overwhelmed by the dragon's formidable power. What crushed his spirit completely was realizing that the dragon they thought would be paralyzed after its attack was, in fact, far from immobilized. Contrary to the guide's information, Athos was on the move, preparing to strike again. Without warning, Athos unleashed a dragon's breath, a skill even more destructive than anything the guild had faced. The sheer force and intensity of the flames obliterated what little remained of their defenses. All Lei Shan could do was curse the damned dragon, vowing to return the favor 100 times over. As the last of the guild members fell, a system interface popped up for Su Yang. It announced that the intruders had been completely eliminated, and now it was time for the distribution of experience. To Su Yang's surprise, the amount of XP was overwhelming. But then again, he had just wiped out a guild full of high-level players, many ranging from level 80 to 99. The XP was flowing in fast, and Su Yang's level skyrocketed from level 1 to level 20, instantly reaching the level cap of his first transformation. But that wasn't all. He'd gained so much XP that even after hitting the level cap, his experience overflowed, though 40% was lost due to the cap limit. He still had 430,000 XP stored up, plenty to fuel his next transformation. The realization was thrilling. After his job change, he could potentially shoot all the way up to level 40 of the second transformation in no time. Su Yang couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. This was beyond anything he'd expected. On top of that, he had accumulated 200 unallocated attribute points, ready to use when he returned to his original form. But before he could even think about that, Su Yang's attention shifted to the battlefield, which was now littered with shimmering lights. A clear sign of equipment drops from the high-level players he had just defeated. Eager to see what he'd earned, Su Yang began collecting the loot, expecting to find some gold-tier gear at best. But to his astonishment, among the items were even higher rarity treasures. There was a diamond-tier longbow, cloud flow boots, a platinum-tier staff, and a flame greatsword. These items exceeded his expectations, especially the longbow, which he immediately recognized as belonging to Zhao Ming, the vice president of the Spirit Hunt Guild. Su Yang couldn't help but chuckle at the thought of Zhao Ming's reaction to losing such a prized item. Although Su Yang was a warrior and couldn't use the longbow or staff, he knew their value on the black market would bring in a substantial profit. Along with the weapons and armor, he found potions and premium skill scrolls, all capable of boosting his abilities. But what really caught his eye was a broken boundless gem. This exceptional item was a game changer. It had the ability to remove level restrictions from equipment, which meant Su Yang could wield gear like the platinum-tier flame greatsword, even though it normally required a minimum level of 79. This weapon wasn't just a perfect match for his warrior class. It also came with incredible attributes, including a flame enchantment that would add fire damage to his attacks and the ability to summon a flame giant, though it had a one-day cooldown. The greatsword was insanely powerful, and Su Yang couldn't wait to use it. Just as he was admiring his loot, the system notified him that he could now return to his original form. Without hesitation, Su Yang triggered the transformation. Light enveloped his massive dragon form, and in the next moment, he found himself back in his human body. To his surprise, he wasn't just back in his old location. The system had conveniently returned him to his house. But none of that mattered as much to Su Yang as one thing. He was now level 20. What had just happened was no dream. It was real. Without wasting any time, Su Yang went ahead and allocated his newly earned attribute points. He put 100 points into strength and 50 points each into speed and spirit. Now, typically, warriors don't bother investing in spirit, but Su Yang wasn't just any regular warrior anymore. With the system advantage, he wasn't bound by the usual path. Plus, he'd obtained scrolls that required a certain amount of spirit to use. But just as he confirmed the distribution of his points, something unexpected happened. An overwhelming aura erupted from his body, as if the very essence of his being had been supercharged. The power radiating from him was so intense that it sent a shockwave through the room, knocking over items and leaving everything in disarray. The experience served as a stark reminder of the raw power he now commanded, and Su Yang mentally noted to be more careful in the future. He didn't want to lose control again. Now that his stats were sorted, Su Yang's next priority was heading to the temple to complete his job change. But when he checked the time, he realized it was already too late to go today. With no other choice, he decided to rest for now and head to the temple tomorrow. The thought of starting the transfer quest filled him with excitement. He couldn't wait to see how his job change would take him to the next level. Meanwhile, Back at the Spirit Hunt Guild headquarters, the early return of their leader, Lei Shan, sent a wave of shock through the guild members. They knew his early arrival meant one of two things. Either they had swiftly vanquished the Black Dragon, or they had suffered a crushing defeat. It didn't take long for the truth to become clear. Lei Shan's diminished state told the whole story. His level had dropped from 99 to 90, something no one had ever witnessed before. The guild, which had always prided itself on being invincible, was in disbelief. They had relied on their strategies and the guide from the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion, certain that defeat was impossible. But this defeat only fueled Lei Shan's rage. He commanded his men never to mention that backstabbing pavilion in front of him again. He had traded his universe ring for that strategy, and all it had done was lead them to ruin. The defeat had hit his men hard too. Zhao Ming, the vice president, had dropped to level 86 and lost his diamond tier weapon, which took a heavy toll on him. Even Xian Yuan, the guild's priest, was in a full-blown tantrum. He had lost his precious cloud flow boots and the chance to secure an elf girlfriend. With all this, Lei Shan's eyes sparked with fury, radiating the power of thunder. It was a clear sign of the storm brewing inside him. He vowed to seek retribution against the pavilion for their betrayal and wouldn't rest until he got answers from those deceivers. The next day arrived, and at the Anshan orphanage, the atmosphere was completely different from any typical day. The place was alive with activity. Children ran around, playing and laughing, while the adults were busy trying to keep things under control. But things were even more chaotic than usual, because the orphanage had received a surprising number of deliveries. Piles of boxes and packages had arrived, much to everyone's confusion. The elderly caretaker, who oversaw the orphanage, was particularly puzzled. He wondered if there had been some sort of mistake. How could all these goods be meant for them? He even asked the delivery staff if they were at the wrong place. But they reassured him they were in the right location. They showed him the paperwork, which clearly stated that all the deliveries were addressed to the Anshan orphanage, and the person who had sent them was none other than Su Yang. This revelation left the old man shocked. He knew Su Yang very well. He knew Su Yang didn't have much money, so how could he afford to send so many supplies to the orphanage? The caretaker couldn't wrap his head around it. As he stood there lost in thought, something caught his attention. A little girl was playing dangerously close to a stack of crates. His parental instincts kicked in, and his heart dropped when he saw the crates start to tip over, ready to fall on the girl. The caretaker tried to rush over, but he was too old to get there in time. All he could do was shout out, hoping someone could reach her before it was too late. Just as the crates were about to fall, a figure rushed in with remarkable speed. An arm shot out, catching and stabilizing the crates in the nick of time, preventing them from crashing down on the little girl. The rescuer? None other than Su Yang, the same person who had sent all the deliveries. He had arrived just in time to save the day. As soon as the kids recognized him, they rushed toward him, all smiles and excitement. It was clear Su Yang was well loved at the orphanage, and seeing the kids so lively brought him a sense of peace. The old caretaker was equally excited to greet him, and he couldn't help but notice how strong Su Yang had become. Su Yang was holding the heavy crates like they were nothing, a clear sign that he had already received a profession, which made the caretaker proud. Despite his joy, the old man couldn't shake his concern for Su Yang's safety. It was second nature for him to worry about the children he had raised, so he couldn't help but advise Su Yang to remain cautious and prioritize his own well-being. Su Yang offered an awkward smile in response, fully aware that he was now the monster others should be afraid of. Still, he was touched by the caretaker's concern. Growing up as an orphan, Su Yang had always felt fortunate to have someone who cared for him like family. Wanting to ease the old man's worries, Su Yang reassured him, saying there was nothing to fear. After all, the monsters couldn't hurt him, not with the strength he now had. He even mentioned he was heading to the temple to complete his job change, a fact that made the caretaker momentarily relieved. But as Su Yang walked away, the caretaker was left puzzled. Su Yang's mention of monsters and his rapid progression in power, especially since he had only awakened the day before, left the old man with more questions than answers. Shortly after leaving the orphanage, Su Yang made his way to the profession change hall. Upon arrival, he found himself caught up in the whirlwind of rumors circulating the area. The hot topic of the day? The Spirit Hunt Guild had been completely decimated, and it all traced back to a problem with the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion's branch. Their guide had failed the guild in the worst way possible. Word had it that, in their quest for revenge, the Spirit Hunt Guild had confronted the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion, sparking a scandal that was now casting a dark shadow over the pavilion's reputation. The Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion, known for its precise and highly respected raid strategies, was now under scrutiny for a mistake that seemed totally out of character for such a prestigious organization. As Su Yang moved through the crowd, absorbing the gossip, he pieced together the key details. The Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion wasn't just any raid group. It was a top-tier organization full of fifth-tier experts. If there really was a flaw in their strategy, it was only a matter of time before they tried to rectify it by coming after him. But instead of feeling worried, Su Yang found himself smiling. The thought of going up against the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion didn't intimidate him at all. It actually excited him. He imagined the high-quality equipment he could snatch from them after their inevitable confrontation. However, his thoughts were abruptly interrupted by none other than the guy who couldn't mind his own business, Wang Fei. And as usual, he had his group of nobodies with him. Wang Fei, with his trademark arrogance, wasted no time in throwing shade. He mocked Su Yang for still coming to the temple, claiming that Su Yang's profession was nothing but trash. Before Su Yang could respond, Wang Fei cut him off, making it clear that his question was rhetorical. He knew why Su Yang kept coming here, because no guild wanted him. According to Wang Fei, Su Yang had to come every day, hoping for a change in luck, and Wang Fei found that hilarious. But all jokes aside, Wang Fei said it was a good time to finish what they started the other day. He smugly reminded Su Yang that he had let him off the hook because of guild business, but now that his schedule was free, and with his points allocated and new skills learned, he was ready to teach Su Yang a lesson. Wang Fei was itching to demonstrate his new abilities, and it looked like Su Yang was his chosen target. Alright, so things are heating up for Wang Fei. Just as he was about to make his move, Su Yang decides he's not going to wait around. Before Wang could even react, Su Yang strikes first. He throws a punch so powerful that Wang's face ends up catching his fists. The hit was insane. Wang Fei practically becomes a human pinball, bouncing around, and before anyone could blink, his HP drops to 5%. Yup, Su Yang almost killed him with one blow. This wasn't just a fight, it was a message. Su Yang made it loud and clear to Wang Fei's little crew. Mess with him, and you're gonna get a taste of these hands, just like Wang did. And you know what? They weren't about to test him on that. So, they scooped up Wang Fei and beat a hasty retreat, not looking back. But as they disappeared from view, Su Yang hears something from behind, applause. He turns around, and who does he see? A woman in black. Now, her outfit might kind of look like a nun's, but the thigh-high slit in her dress? Yeah, she's definitely not a nun. Turns out she's a transition guide from the temple, a key staff member from the Hall of Change, and she's impressed with Su Yang's skills. She asks if she can help him, and Su Yang, being on top of things, says he's ready for a profession transition. Lucky for him, this guide is exactly who he needs. As they walk together, she can't help but notice something interesting. Su Yang looks like he's new to the world of hunters. He has that vibe. But what she saw earlier, the strength and speed he showed, that was no rookie move. She starts to wonder if maybe he's a level 20 professional, a rank usually reserved for the second-gen kids of powerful families. This guy is definitely not what she expected, but her curiosity has to wait because they've arrived at their destination, the transition god statue. This thing is massive, carved from marble, and radiating with a kind of magic that can evaluate your profession and level. The statue assigns transition tasks based on this, and completing one is the only way to advance as a hunter. Now, these transition tasks? They're no joke. They come in 4 levels of difficulty, each testing your strength and skill. The guide suggests Su Yang try a 3-star task, but Su Yang, being Su Yang, wonders why he shouldn't go for a 4-star. She explains that the 4-star challenges are on a whole other level. Fail one, and you're stuck, unable to transition for life. Not a decision to take lightly. Understanding the risk, Su Yang steps up to the statue. He extends his arm, and a flash of lightning fills the room. The statue is evaluating him. Once it confirms his eligibility, a series of tasks pop up, each more difficult than the last, each with its own rewards. The 1-star task? Easy. Just defeat 10 level 20 sharp-tooth boars, and in return, he could become either a charge warrior or a defense warrior. Simple enough. 2-star? Slightly tougher, but now with the reward of a common grade, 1st-tier warrior skill book. 3-star? Even more intense, but it comes with a superior grade skill book that would make Su Yang even stronger. Then we get to the 4-star task, which is where things start to get real. This one would test him like nothing else, but if he succeeds, Su Yang could become a bloodthirsty warlord. And the reward? A fine grade, 1st-tier warrior skill book. But here's the twist. As Su Yang's looking through these options, something catches his eye. There's a task beyond the 4-star challenge, a 5-star transition task. And this one? It's different. Dark. The background color is ominous, standing out from the rest. So, Su Yang takes a closer look at the 5-star task, and let me tell you, this thing is on a whole different level. The challenge? He has to venture deep into the dangerous Cold Moon Forest, where he needs to take down 100 level 20 ordinary gray wolves, 10 elite savage wolves, and 1 level 20 boss gray wolf. And to make it even crazier, he's not allowed to use any equipment or items he got as gifts or through trades. Yeah, this is beyond overkill. But here's the kicker. The rewards totally justify the insane challenge. If Su Yang pulls this off, he gets a special transition to the path of a demon warrior, plus 100 extra points to his spirit attribute, an epic grade first-tier demon warrior skill, and some exclusive temple benefits. Naturally, this info completely shocks Su Yang, especially since he was originally told the highest challenge available was the 4-star task. Confused, Su Yang turns to the nun and asks what's up with that. She quickly apologizes and explains that the 5-star task wasn't mentioned because, well, it's just that difficult. No one in the entire Hua Kingdom has even attempted this task for years. In fact, both the temple and the country advise people not to go for it. They don't want potential high-level professionals stuck at level 20 forever because they bit off more than they could chew. Su Yang gets the logic behind their advice. This 5-star task isn't just a challenge, it's a life-altering decision. It's asking him to take down a boss-level monster without any outside help or special equipment. The difficulty is so extreme, it's no wonder most people steer clear of it. But even with all that, Su Yang can't help but be tempted. The thought of gaining 100 spirit points, becoming a demon warrior, and unlocking these mysterious temple privileges really has him hooked. And just like that, Su Yang's mind is made up. He's going for the 5-star task. The nun, though? She's doing everything she can to talk him out of it. She really wants him to take the 3-star task instead, but Su Yang? No, he's already decided. He thanks her for the advice, which makes her smile, until the system chimes in, confirming that Su Yang has officially accepted the 5-star challenge. Her shock? Priceless. She can't believe what she's hearing. She even asks him straight up, "Why would you do that?" And Su Yang, as cool as ever, just says, "It felt right." That's it. He's going purely off his instincts. The nun is thinking, what the? But before she can say anything else, Su Yang reassures her that there's nothing to worry about. He's confident he's going to complete the task, no question. He even tells her to get the temple ready because he's curious about those privileges. Then, like a total Chad, he just walks away, disappearing from sight, leaving the nun standing there completely stunned. After a moment, she snaps out of it, panicking, and orders one of her co-workers to inform the high priest that someone actually dared to take on the 5-star task. Fast forward to Su Yang arriving at the transmission center. The place is packed with hunters, but not by choice. Turns out, an unexpected energy fluctuation has disrupted the portal, leaving everyone stuck in place. It's a rare inconvenience, and it's caught everyone off guard, including Su Yang. But unlike the others, Su Yang's not too bothered by it. He's not in any rush to get to the Cold Moon Forest, so he decides to use the delay to plan out his trip more carefully. Not everyone's as chill about it, though. One person who's especially frustrated by the delay is a city girl named Su Yin. And honestly, she's kind of bad, I'm not gonna lie. But anyway, she's used to the fast pace of city life, so dealing with the inefficiencies of this smaller town is really testing her patience. To make matters worse, she's getting all the wrong attention from the local men, so she warns her sister, Gu Xiaoqian, to stay close and avoid getting separated in the crowd. As Su Yin and her sister, Gu Xiaoqian, stood waiting, something caught Gu Xiaoqian's eye, a familiar figure in the crowd. It was Su Yang, standing calmly in line for the portal, and for some reason, just seeing him there brought a blush to her cheeks. Her heart warmed unexpectedly at the sight. But of course, Su Yin noticed her sister's reaction immediately. Curious, she asked what was up with the sudden interest, which totally flustered Gu Xiaoqian. Trying to downplay it, Gu Xiaoqian explained that Su Yang was just a classmate who had changed professions recently. Nothing more, nothing less. Still, Su Yin found it strange. Why would Su Yang, a supposed novice, be lining up for a portal to the Cold Moon Jungle? That place is no joke. It's a death trap for beginners. Concerned that Su Yang might be rushing into danger without being properly prepared, Gu Xiaoqian felt the urge to warn him. But before either of them could act, the portal resumed operations, and Su Yang was already gone, transported straight into the dangerous jungle. Gu Xiaoqian was left standing there in shock, her mind racing with worry for his safety. Meanwhile, on the other side, Su Yang steps into the cold moon jungle like it's no big deal. The first thing he notices? There are no other hunters around. It's eerily quiet, and that sets off alarm bells in his head. He figures that everyone else must have sensed the danger and bailed, leaving him to handle the jungle's threats alone. And sure enough, a monster attacks him from behind. But Su Yang? He's got that ultra instinct. He dodges like it's nothing, hands down looking like Goku in drip mode, just casually avoiding the strike. When he finally turns to face the creature, he realizes it's one of the targets from his quest, though he didn't expect to run into it so soon. Now, dealing with this monster is tricky under normal circumstances. Most people would rely on special equipment or trade items to take it down. But Su Yang? Nah, he's got something better. He pulls out his long, flaming sword and slices through the beast like butter, overkilling it on purpose just to see the sword at full power. The flames cook the creature right on the spot. See, Su Yang had invested a ton of money into this sword, mainly because the sword didn't have a gem slot. He originally planned to use a gem that would let him bypass level requirements, but without a slot, the gem was useless. So, he had to buy a high-level drilling stone to carve one in. But luck wasn't on his side. It kept failing over and over again, draining his bank account from 100 million to 60 million. Painful, right? Still, getting to use the sword now felt like a win. Su Yang decided to look on the bright side of things. Plus, he still had Xiao Ming's old longbow. If he could sell that, maybe he'd recover some of his losses. Maybe even sell it back to Xiao Ming himself, which he found kind of funny. But financial worries had to wait. Su Yang was suddenly under attack again. Fortunately, he was prepared. He had a silver-level scroll in his possession, and it activated a powerful barrier around him, capable of absorbing up to 50,000 points of damage. The low IQ monsters didn't stand a chance. They kept attacking the barrier over and over, clueless about what they were really up against. Su Yang let them attack, knowing they were playing right into his hands. Then, with a single devastating swing of his sword, he unleashed a fiery whirlwind that swept through the wolves, wiping out 15 of them in one go. Impressive, right? But that was just the beginning. He still needed to kill 100 wolves to complete his quest, and hunting them down one by one would be way too time-consuming. So, Su Yang pulled out a monster attraction stone from his inventory. This rare item, usually dropped by low-level bosses, had the ability to attract both ordinary and elite monsters within a wide radius straight to him. It was the perfect tool to streamline his mission, and Su Yang knew exactly how to use it. Su Yang activated the monster attraction stone by tossing it into the sky, where it shattered, releasing its magic. Almost immediately, the stone's power became clear. Wolves began swarming from every direction, surrounding Su Yang completely. But running away? That was never an option for Su Yang. He was determined to complete his quest in the most decisive way possible. To prepare, he quickly drank an intermediate spirit potion, boosting his spirit points significantly, and then pulled out a special baptism of fire skill scroll. This scroll allowed him to unleash a devastating area of effect fire attack, wrapping him in a massive pillar of flames that incinerated any monster that dared to get too close. In just a few moments, he hit the goal of slaying 100 wolves. But, thanks to the insane power of the attraction stone, it seemed like he had lured every monster in the forest. Was Su Yang worried? Not at all. He had plenty of scrolls left, so he could easily keep dealing with the monsters swarming him. Meanwhile, in a remote part of the cold moon jungle, a group of hunters was moving through the eerily silent forest. Normally, they'd be fending off creatures left and right, but today, nothing. They had walked 2 kilometers without encountering a single monster, which had them on edge. Something was definitely off. One of the hunters even mentioned seeing a monster run away from them, which is unheard of in this forest. Monsters here are always aggressive, never scared. The group's most experienced hunter quickly pieced it together. Someone had used a monster attraction stone, drawing every creature in the forest to a single point. This tactic? Shameless. It was clear someone wanted all the kills and rewards for themselves, leaving other hunters empty-handed. Determined to confront this selfish hunter, the group picked up the pace, ready to teach this guy a lesson he'd never forget. But just as they were getting closer, a massive surge of power erupted from the direction they were headed. The attack was so strong it reached the skies, and the shockwave? Impossible to ignore. They felt it from a distance. The group cursed. This kind of magic fluctuation could only come from a high-level mage, likely a third-tier magician. Realizing they were way out of their league, they decided to abandon the idea of a confrontation. Whoever this guy was, he was clearly more powerful than they expected, and they'd be better off focusing on something else. Meanwhile, back at the heart of the jungle, Su Yang stood in the aftermath of his fiery assault. The area that had once been overrun by wolves was now empty. Not a single monster or corpse remained. The landscape around him was scorched, with no vegetation in sight for miles. The destruction was immense, and Su Yang knew he had now completed 2/3 of his 5-star task. All that was left was the final boss. A grin spread across Su Yang's face. Despite using several scrolls to get this far, the challenge had been way easier than he'd expected, especially considering how the nun at the temple had freaked out when he accepted the task. Now, with the boss battle ahead, Su Yang couldn't help but feel excited. Maybe this final challenge would finally give him the thrill he'd been looking for. Su Yang headed toward the Cold Moon Cave, the lair of the fearsome Blue Wolf King. This boss was no joke. It usually took a team of at least 3 hunters, all over level 20, to bring it down. But as Su Yang approached, he wasn't the only one with his sights set on the Wolf King. Nearby, a group of 3 hunters was peeking around the corner, also preparing for the fight. They were a well-rounded team. Zhang, the mage, Li San, the tank, and Zhao Wu, the archer. Each of them played a critical role in the upcoming battle, and they were confident, especially Li San, who had just been given a primary strength concoction by Zhang, allowing him to hold out longer in the fight. Zhao Wu, however, wasn't feeling as confident. He had only just changed professions and hadn't even tested his new skills yet, leaving him unsure of his own strength. But Zhang, motivated by the promise of the Wolf King's core, wasn't having it. The core had a 100% chance of dropping a crystal that could be forged into a silver-level staff, a weapon strong enough to carry Zhang all the way to level 40. So, Zhang did everything he could to pump up Zhao Wu, encouraging him to set aside his doubts and focus on the potential rewards. After all, if they could pull this off, their victory would be huge. Just as Zhang was hyping up the group, getting them ready to ambush the Wolf King, Zhao Wu suddenly signaled him to stop. He had spotted something unexpected, a figure approaching the cave. All eyes locked on this mysterious person, and to their surprise, it was Su Yang, confidently walking straight toward the boss's lair. The group instantly panicked, thinking this kid was about to steal their kill. But as they looked closer, they noticed something strange. This guy was young, way too young to be tackling a boss like the Wolf King. And on top of that, he wasn't even wearing any armor. To them, this screamed newbie. Li San, the tank, suggested they warn him, maybe tell him he's biting off more than he can chew. But Zhang? No, he wasn't about to help. He smacked Li San's arm, dismissing the idea as stupid. In his mind, this was the perfect opportunity. Why not let the kid be their free bait? Zhang figured Su Yang would get crushed by the boss's first wave of attacks, leaving them to swoop in, clean up, and take all the rewards. Li San couldn't help but admire Zhang's cunning plan, and they all agreed to wait it out. Unfortunately for them, things didn't go as planned. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble, a powerful quake shaking the area. The cause? Su Yang. His earlier massacre of the wolves had enraged the Wolf King, and now the boss's power surged by 30%. The trio was clueless about why the boss was so mad. Zhang, of course, blamed Su Yang for messing up their plan and ruining everything. Zhang wasn't about to let this go. He leapt out of hiding, yelling at his crew to move fast before the boss fled, convinced the kid would get folded in seconds. But just as he rushed forward, a fierce gust of wind slammed into his face, pulling back his hood and forcing him to stop dead in his tracks. And what did he see? The sight left him speechless. His crew? Same wide-eyed, jaw-dropping reaction. Su Yang, the newbie they thought would be easy bait, had completely flipped the script. With one clean hit, he obliterated the Wolf King. It wasn't even a fight. Su Yang took down the boss like it was nothing. Light work, no struggle, no reaction. The trio realized in that moment. Never judge a book by its cover. This kid was a monster. Meanwhile, Su Yang remained as calm as ever, like the whole thing was just another day at the office. The 5-star quest that was supposed to be insanely difficult? Child's play. After defeating the Wolf King, Su Yang sifted through the loot, hopeful for some valuable rewards. But to his disappointment, the drops were mediocre at best. The items weren't even close to what he was hoping for. Among the loot, the Wolf King's crystal core stood out, but not in a good way. It was practically worthless to him. Still, his quest was complete, so at least he had that going for him. Su Yang decided it was time to head back to the transfer hall, but before he could leave, Zhang overheard his dismissive comments about the crystal core. Seeing a chance, Zhang swallowed his pride and tried his luck. He asked Su Yang if he'd be so kind as to give him the core. But little did Zhang know, Su Yang had heard every word of their earlier conversation. The disrespect, the plan to use him as bait, all of it. So, instead of handing over the core, Su Yang confronted Zhang about his selfish, trashy behavior. Now that things didn't go Zhang's way, he had the nerve to try and play nice? Yeah, Su Yang wasn't having it. Without a second thought, Su Yang shattered the core right in front of Zhang's face, making it crystal clear that he wasn't someone to be stepped on. He dared Zhang to come at him if he wanted a fight. He was more than ready to give him some smoke. But Zhang? Nah. Even though he was humiliated, he didn't do a thing. He just stood there, defeated, and let Su Yang walk away like a boss. Zhang's crew was just as stunned, unable to believe what had just happened. They wished it was all just a bad dream, because who would believe that some rookie kid could kill the Wolf King with one hit? It was unreal. A few moments later, Su Yang successfully returned to Hunter Square, where he was greeted by the same nun from earlier. At first, she assumed he had come back with more questions, but Su Yang wasted no time setting the record straight. He had completed his 5-star task and was ready for his job transfer. The look on her face? Pure shock. I mean, it's understandable. Finishing a 5-star transfer task this quickly is unheard of. She was skeptical at first, but once she checked the system's records, it confirmed everything. Su Yang wasn't lying. He had really done it. This completely shifted the way she saw him. He wasn't just some show-off or reckless idiot. This guy was seriously powerful, to the point where people might think he was cheating. But with the system verifying his success and the fact that he returned unharmed, it was clear just how strong Su Yang really was. As the nun continued staring at him, Su Yang started to feel a little uncomfortable and snapped her out of it by asking if he could begin his job transfer now. After confirming everything, the nun led him back to the statue. But as they walked, her mind was still racing, thinking about Su Yang's insane strength. She realized how beneficial it would be for her temple to have someone like him on their side. Thankfully, she had already informed the priest about Su Yang's talent, reducing the chances of him being recruited by other factions. But as she thought more about him, things started getting a little personal. The nun, despite being, well, a nun, couldn't help but notice how handsome Su Yang was. Her thoughts went wild. She was straight up down bad, imagining all sorts of things, even thinking about asking for his contact info once all this was over. The idea of being with Su Yang was driving her crazy, but for now, she had to set those thoughts aside. They arrived at the statue, and Su Yang wasted no time stepping closer. Almost immediately, a burst of light filled the room, followed by beams of energy descending upon him, one after another. The powerful energy coursed through his body, signaling that he had successfully passed the test. Su Yang was now ready for his job change. Then, something amazing happened. A golden halo materialized around his wrist. This was a job halo, a special reward given to players who complete job transfer tasks. The color of the halo and the bonuses it provided were based on the difficulty of the task. White offered a 2% bonus, green gave 4%, blue provided 6%, purple granted 10%, and orange, the highest tier, offered a staggering 25% boost to basic attributes. Yeah, Su Yang had just unlocked that orange halo, the highest tier. This was beyond what he had expected, and he could feel it. He had leveled up significantly. On top of that, Su Yang officially transitioned into the Demon Warrior class, a hybrid class that excelled in both close combat physical skills and a wide range of magic abilities. This transformation made him even more versatile and powerful. His level cap was now raised to 40. And thanks to the 400,000 experience points he had saved up, Su Yang's level instantly shot up to 34. That meant he now had 210 attribute points to allocate. Wasting no time, Su Yang strategically boosted his strength and spirit to 90 each, while adding 30 points to his speed. This, combined with his flaming sword, made his power skyrocket. His strength surged to over 500, his spirit reached 300, and his speed hit 100, a massive upgrade from where he started. But the rewards didn't stop there. As promised, Su Yang received the Epic Skill Book exclusive to the Demon Warrior class. This book contained the Magic Blade skill, an epic-grade ability that allowed Su Yang to forge a weapon out of condensed mana, dealing full magic damage. And here's the kicker. The damage of the blade increased with his strength and mental attributes, making it ridiculously powerful. Without hesitation, Su Yang decided to test the skill out. He materialized a blade made entirely of mana and swung it. and to his surprise, the blade's capabilities exceeded his expectations. It wasn't just powerful, it could be controlled with mere thought. The blade could even change shape at will, giving Su Yang incredible versatility in both close-quarters combat and ranged attacks. And the best part? The blade could be enlarged infinitely, only limited by Su Yang's mana reserves. It was basically like owning an indestructible heirloom weapon, perfect for any situation and insanely cost-efficient. There was no doubt about it. This was definitely a 5-star job transfer mission. The rewards Su Yang received far surpassed those of any lesser tasks. Now, with his newfound power, Su Yang resolved to pursue even more 5-star challenges in the future. Su Yang's thoughts were interrupted as the nun congratulated him on his incredible achievement. She told him that from now on, his name would be engraved on the temple monument, and he'd officially become a VIP guest of the job transfer temple. Speaking of VIPs, Su Yang was curious, so he went ahead and asked about the specific privileges. But the nun wasn't sure of the details herself and suggested they wait while she checked with her superiors. Turns out there was no need to wait at all. Another figure appeared on the scene, ready to explain everything about the VIP benefits. The newcomer was dressed in an enchanting white gown. It was none other than Bai Ling, the senior priest of the transfer temple in Dangling City. Her sudden arrival shocked even the nun, and for good reason. The position of senior priest is just below the highest authority in the temple. Seeing someone of her rank personally show up was rare, but Su Yang's 5-star accomplishment was enough to warrant this special treatment. With Bai Ling now handling things, the nun's role became unnecessary. Bai Ling politely dismissed her, and while the nun left with a smile on her face, deep down she was crying because she still hadn't gotten Su Yang's contact information. Now that the formalities were settled, Bai Ling approached Su Yang and extended her hand for a handshake. At first, Su Yang was a little puzzled by the gesture, hesitating for a moment. But Bai Ling quickly explained that it was the easiest way to transport him to the VIP room for a more detailed discussion. Trusting her intentions, Su Yang took her hand, and in an instant, a magical circle enveloped them, teleporting them to a different part of the temple. Su Yang was amazed by the whole thing. The fact that a senior priest from a third-tier city could use such advanced abilities blew his mind. No wonder people said the strength of the transfer temple was unimaginable. Bai Ling noticed Su Yang's impressed expression and humbly downplayed her powers, explaining that her abilities weren't inherently strong. It was just borrowed magic from the temple's sacred statue. She then mentioned something even more surprising. Dangling City had never had a 5-star job changer before. Even in Tianling City, a much bigger and more advanced city, only one person had completed a 5-star task in the past decade. This blew Su Yang's mind. If even Tianling City struggled with this, it made him realize the value of his achievement was far greater than he originally thought. Bai Ling began explaining the benefits that came with being a VIP at the temple, and the rewards were no joke. First off, Su Yang was going to receive a monthly allowance of 10 million in the national currency, an insanely generous sum that showed just how much the temple valued his success. On top of that, he'd been granted black gold status with the EX Alliance, meaning he'd get a 20% discount on all purchases and transactions. This perk alone would make Su Yang's future endeavors way more efficient and way cheaper. Su Yang was in awe of how seamlessly these privileges were integrated into his ID. Everything was automated, making it super easy for him to access his benefits. But Bai Ling wasn't done yet. She had more surprises in store. She explained that Su Yang's exceptional status also meant he had the opportunity to join any A-level guild within the city. Su Yang, always the solo player, immediately asked if joining a guild was required. Bai Ling reassured him that it wasn't obligatory, but she strongly recommended it. Being in a guild would provide him with resources, support, experience buffs or enhancements, and, most importantly, team protection. It would make his growth and strength skyrocket compared to working alone. Su Yang understood her reasoning. Going solo, especially after taking the spotlight with a 5-star task, would make him a target. While he could handle most hunters of his level, dealing with higher-level ones might be a challenge. Having a guild's backing could prevent him from being hunted down by jealous competitors. Plus, with Su Yang's goals set far beyond Dangling City, it made sense to gather all the help he could get. His ambitions to become a dominant figure across all realms made him smile. With that settled, Su Yang asked Bai Ling about the guilds he could choose from. Bai Ling revealed there were only 2 A-level guilds in Dangling City and recommended the Spirit Hunting Guild as the best option for him. However, Su Yang immediately hesitated. He'd recently had some let's just say, unpleasant encounters with members of that guild. So he wasn't too keen on the idea. Wanting to explore other options, Suyang asked Bai Ling about the second guild. That's when she mentioned the Phantom Cloud Guild. Unlike spirit hunting, Phantom Cloud was known for its strength and discretion, keeping a low profile while still being highly competitive. Without much thought, Suyang chose Phantom Cloud. Anything was better than spirit hunting at this point. Bai Ling was surprised by his choice, but she proceeded to handle the membership formalities for him, making the process seamless. However, just as Suyang was about to leave, Bai Ling dropped a bombshell. Phantom Cloud Guild was composed entirely of women. This caught Suyang completely off guard. He hadn't expected that at all.